there. Right, I call this behind closed doors, Tony.
It is.
But it's one I've been meaning to do for a while. I think we've had a bit of a presentation for yourself today, obviously on what you call the formula to success. And, you know, when you go through your resume, player, coach, agent, mentor, father, there's probably a few other titles that I can add in there, but
villain.
But for those that you don't know you, Tone, give us some of the foundations or the main points to what makes Tony Robinson who he is.
Well, I can be clear on what makes me who I am. A little bit of it is adversity, actually. So a little scar in the soul. I didn't have a father growing up. My dad left when I was a baby. And growing up, especially in the football world, and you're there, you know, my mum, single parent, there's me and my little sister, and she's working all the time, every hour God sends. And if it was today, I think she'd have had us take an offer. But we were left to fend for ourselves, and we had to grow up fast, and you know, that survival instinct. But also, you go to a match. You know, you're 8, 9 years old. You've taken 3 buses yourself. You've got there, and lads are there with their dads, and you know, and over time these things they harm you, they scar you. However, for some strange reason which I can't figure out, I've just always had this positive personality. I've always had this, you know, you got to keep going, you got to keep trying, you got to keep working harder. I've just always had that, and really, football. When I stopped playing football, that hole needed filling, and it wasn't a hole of, well, I'm not playing anymore. It was a yearning of, like, I need to do something for others that I didn't have. And so the Tony in the football world is not very different than the Tony in the personal world. I am a guy, very honest, tell it like it is. I treat people the way I want to be treated, which I think is the most fundamental rule. And in both normal life and in football, I think you've got to give everything every day to whatever you're doing. And really that sums me up. But it wasn't the way I was as a player. It was once I became a coach and I realised, well, I couldn't coach them to be like I was. And so I started to realise that the outcome, the thing that actually makes you feel you've done something worthwhile isn't the winning of a game and picking up a trophy. It's, did you affect someone's life? Yeah.
And Tone, I think, you know, for anybody that's heard you talk, or especially in scenarios like today we're speaking with young people, you know, a lot of your messages come from obviously correcting the things that you feel you didn't do as a player or did wrong, so to speak. But that being said, you were still a very successful player in your own right? So grow up in Nottingham, you head to the US at a fairly young age, you play in a very, very successful Duke team. You know, talk to me a little bit about that. You mentioned your bad attitude and stuff like that, or your perception, but you still had so much success. And I think you said something really powerful today was, you know, even if it wasn't for the injury that eventually ended your career, while all that was, you know, amazing, you don't feel that you would have sustained at that level due to your sort of your daily habits and your mentality and so on. So could you just speak to us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes talent can be a curse. If you know, I was this tall, I would say I looked odd as a footballer because a bit like Crouch, you know, he was good with the ball, wasn't he? I was really, and the next time I come up, I'll bring an article to show you. The ball at my feet, I could run with it, I could dribble, I could beat players and everything. I was 2-footed. You would look to me and went, what foot is he? I started studying football. First game of football I ever watched was the 1970 World Cup final. And that was when football became, you know, everything. But I was a student of the game. It wasn't just, I never just watched a game. I wanted to know why everything was. So I think I was born to have a coach inside me and stuff. But I think not having that role model as a youngster actually made me too confident, too, you know, self-reliant, too, I don't need anybody. And the talent got me through high school. You know, my high school, I think in 3 years we lost 6 games or something, you know, really successful high school team. And I played for New York State, you know, it was a really successful state team. Got onto the under-20 national team, and the World Cup got boycotted and didn't get to go. And I think I was injured anyway. And then I go to Duke, and it really was then that my attitude let me down, because I was an incredible Duke team for 4 years, 4 Herman Trophy winners, countless All-Americans, many that went on to be pros. But I had the ability to be one of them Herman Trophy winners, and I was a party guy. I was at the frat parties, girls. I was doing all that, and then, you know, I go off to Greece for a bit, and it's super hot there, and I didn't want to do the hard work. And then I come back, and I go to Mansfield, and I was flying. I was absolutely flying. And I think really it was then I should have really switched on and thought, hang on, you could go far here. But sometimes I just think, if none of that happened, I wouldn't have helped all these lads. Mm-hmm. And so I don't regret any of it. I don't wish I could go back and whatever. My mentor, if you like, the person who affected me, was NC State's old coach, George Tarantini. And he said to me once, if you leave this earth and one person, you help them, you lived a good life. And so everyone after that is just a bonus. Right?
Absolutely. And, you know, we'll talk about how that eventually leads to, you know, your coaching and eventually with Anthony as well. But I want to touch briefly on that Duke team because, you know, they mentioned like the class of 92 and, is it 92? Yeah, the Manchester United group. And, you know, that Duke team, and like you say, it was a star-studded lineup. So could you just touch on some of the guys there and what that was like to be in an environment with so many like high-level performers, I guess?
Yeah, it was incredible, really, because at that time, Duke's basketball team were awful.
Right.
And the football team wasn't that good either. So we were the celebrities
Stars on campus.
On the campus, and I had this big personality, so I quickly became known all around campus. Mm-hmm. But the team was fantastic. I still think if anybody took the time to actually do the analysis, it's one of the best college teams ever. You know, 4 Herman Trophy winners. Tommy Kane, the best player I ever played with. He was a machine. He was just a machine. He would literally kill his grandmother to win a game of football. he was like a Michael Jordan of college soccer. Right. He would just do anything to win, and he'd run. And he'd go for 30, 70 balls, you know, and he'd win them, you know. And then my freshman year, also from New York State, 𝗘𝗲𝗵𝗶, and Joey was, his idol was Franz Beckenbauer. And if you want to see how a player can be a role model for a young player, he studied Franz Beckenbauer to the point where he never passed the ball with the inside of his foot. Every pass that guy did outside of the foot,
yeah.
right? Herman Trophy winner. And then there was Mike Jeffries, who's the Charlotte Independence general manager and head coach now. Mm-hmm. Mike was a left back who then took over from Joey as the sweeper. Mike was an athlete, strong, fantastic left foot, savvy, you know, could read the game. Really top player Mike was. And he had a great pro career and everything. And then there was obviously Tommy, and then there was John Kerr, who's Duke's head coach now. Mm-hmm. And John's claim to fame, he's got 2. He was actually the first American to play in the top flight here. And he scored the first goal at the New Den.
Oh, really?
Now, we were very unlucky in the NCAA tournament, though. We were ranked number 1 hundreds of weeks. We won a lot of games. But in the NCAA tournament, my freshman year, we got knocked out in the first round by Alabama A&M. We went on to lose the final against UConn. My sophomore year, they got to the final. I'd fallen out with the coach and walked away from the team. They got to the final. They were undefeated the whole year, and they lose in the longest game in US soccer history, 8 overtimes to powerhouse Indiana. The third year, I think, again, ranked number 1 the whole time. They get knocked out by the old nemesis A&M. And then my senior year, we started off the season brilliantly. We were ranked, doing really well. And I can't remember which game it was, but we lost a game, and it kind of shocked us, and we sort of stumbled after. We had a lot of young players that year, but we're still a top 25 team. So for 4 years, top 25, countless number 1 rankings, Herman Trophy winners, you know. And I would say the 1982 team that got to the final, I know Bruce Arena had 4 consecutive wins and stuff. I never saw those teams, but that Duke team, I think they could have played anybody. They were fantastic.
Fantastic. So, like we said, we're skipping over a large part, but it's because I really want to focus on a few key areas today. But I want to talk about becoming a father as well. Where does that rank in your list of achievements? You know, you've got so many.
I have to tell you, James, that's probably the best question anybody could ask me. I'm not ashamed to say football's my obsession. I'm obsessed with football like you are. Many people I know are obsessed with football. I once jokingly said to my wife, "Oh, well, you can leave me, but I'll still have football." You know?
Yeah.
So it means that much to me. And a lot of the young part of my life, really young part, you know, 5, 6, 7, the hours I spent with a ball out in a field on my own, in the backyard, kicking against the old Lido wall, you know, it kept me out of trouble. And I would honestly say that I can't imagine my life differently if football had never been in it. But I was always conscious that I didn't have a dad. I was always conscious of that. And so for me, I had this one vow. My mum wasn't very lucky with men either. So my one vow was, I'm going to be as good a dad as I can possibly be and I'm going to be there for my wife, you know. And on that father side, with my children, the oldest one, Sean, he was a pretty good non-league player in his day. He was one of those at 16 playing step 4, you know. But he's doing very well in life. He graduated from John Moores. He's been in IT. He's never been out of work a single day. He's married, a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful kids. Doesn't live that far from us in Merseyside. My daughter, next door to Sarah, she's a graduate from Liverpool Uni. She writes short stories. She's really artistic. Like she can paint, she can draw, she can write. She was just born that way. And she has my first grandson, Kellen, who's autistic, and he goes to an unbelievable school that I play the lottery so I can give them tons of money one day. And then Anthony, of course, a lot of people may or may not know, he was actually excellent academically in school. Right. He could have gone to any university he wanted. And then Holly, who's the youngest one, is the best academic of all of us. So she actually got into Oxford. Right. She didn't like it there. I think she just wanted to be close to home. So she's at Liverpool now, and every year she's the top of her class. Amazing. And it, you know, for me, I know I did that job, that it was always in there. I've got to be the best dad I could be, and I know I did that. Yeah, and so naturally, given the cause or the idea behind this conversation, we're going to focus more on Ante because of what he's gone to achieve in the game. And I think when this goes out, or whatever we make of this kind of interview, podcast, whatever you want to call it, for me, the advice from a parental side, you know, I've become accustomed to speaking with players and helping guide them through their careers and different phases of their journey. But I think, you know, from a parental side of things, I think there's just so many questions out there because everybody's coming into the situation never having done it before. My wife keeps telling me I've got to write a book about it because I think it would shock you, some of the stuff. Not shock you in a bad, like shock you like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. And this, what struck me there from that conversation, again, this is why I wanted to do this, because I didn't know that you had obviously 3 other kids aside from Anthony. Talk to me about the difference between Sean and Anthony, right? Because I imagine they would be brought up in similar conditions and so on. Was there anything different about the two other than... The one thing I tried to do, only the kids themselves can say if I truly succeeded. But the one thing I really, really tried to do was I was not going to have any favourites, right? They were all going to be the same to me, and I was that way as a coach. So any teams I've ever coached, or when I'm just doing my development coaching, I don't favour anybody. Like, the message is there for everyone. And as a father, I think my daughter Sarah, she was in a time when I was working every hour's got sent in IT, and then football was my hobby, if you like, and the boys were doing it. So she I think got a little less of my time than she would like. But I can honestly tell you that Sean was really talented. In fact, when he was younger, he was told he was a natural goalkeeper, but he didn't want to play in goal. Right. And the guy, I remember the guy saying, "You're crazy. I want to get you." This was way before anybody was doing one-on-one training. Decades. And this guy was like, "I'm going to get you your own guy. You can go all the way and everything." And he's like, "I want someone to play out on pitch." And he was a striker, and he was very good player. And in his youth, you know, he won a national cup for Merseyside. He was just, the difference between him and Anthony is he's a gentle soul. And Anthony's very laid back, laid back guy. He'd be sitting in the room, you don't know he's there. But Anthony's got fire in him. You know, he's got fire in him. And you must ask me to tell you about the day that we nearly had a big thing at Sheffield United. You must let me tell you that one.
Right.
So Anthony's got this fire in him, but he's laid back.
Right.
Sean's just this gentle soul, the sort of lad everybody likes, right? I always tell him he's the best part of me. He doesn't have that brutal, ruthless thing in him.
Would you say Anthony does?
Yes.
Yeah. And so here's a question that you might not have thought of or prepped for, but I'm going to throw at you anyway. So you're going to write that book, you know, The Secret of Producing a Premier League Player from a Parental Perspective. What's the title of that book called, or what would define, or what would be some of the words that went into?
The title would be, You Need to Listen.
Yeah.
And it really would be about the main driver in any athlete's life is their parents. It's without any doubt, question. Like, I didn't have a dad, that affected me. You have a dad, if you have parents and they're overpowering, that affects you. You have parents that don't care enough, that affects you. And one of the things that I'm still trying to do it today, by the way. I'm still doing it. I'm actually doing it still. Is parents, they really need to, I think they don't know that they don't know the football world. And I think they know football, but it doesn't mean you know the football world. And you don't know how the personalities in different roles in clubs, how that your behaviour with them can affect your child. So for me, the most important thing, and as I said, I'm still doing it, is just to educate the parent. You really don't know the football world. You might be a football fan, and you may have gone and watched your child a lot. That doesn't mean you know the culture of football.
Tone, to sort of bring things together then, in sort of shortened format, if we look at the qualities of what make a pro, we've talked about the qualities or, you know, the keys to success from a steps standpoint, but what are the fundamentals for professional footballers, or the one that you've worked with? What do they all have in common?
The first thing that you know, today's presentation we were talking about, and I deliberately ended with that right at the end, what you're thinking you're becoming, right? So I tell young players, elite players, because that's my only sin really. I only wanted to work with serious footballers. It didn't mean they were great players, but you had to be serious and you come in to train. I always say to them, you can't be a pro unless you think like a pro. So think, when you look at all lads, in fact, probably if you analyse Billy on his journey to ending up playing for Leeds, he was very serious about what he was doing. And everything, it's sort of levels of detail that you're worrying about. You know, your bag is packed, ready to go. You're never late. When you're training, you're paying attention. You're really focused. You know, and then I think the second building block, which I talked about, is they have a belief. They all do. I don't know anyone who makes it to an elite level of anything that doesn't believe in themselves, and you know, through thick and thin. Not
just believe themselves. I think believe they are, or they're capable of being one of the best in the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even League Two players, you know, I speak with them, they all think that they can play in the Premier League, you know. And
well, Ellis will tell you this. One of the things I used to say to the 𝗘𝗲𝗵𝗶𝘀𝗲 was, you know, when you're watching TV and you're watching a game and you're saying, that player's, don't know what he's on there for, right? But he's there. You're watching him.
Yeah.
He did what it took.
Yeah.
You should look in the mirror while you're criticising him. So, you know, I just don't believe it's possible to get there and you didn't believe in yourself, you didn't believe in your dream, you know, and you never lost that belief. Mm-hmm. And if you did have somebody mentoring you and guiding you, they made sure you didn't. That's the second thing. The third thing is, I truly believe that there is a state a person can get to, which I call super fit. And you heard me talking to one of the lads about that. And I think a lot of players don't realise that that state, once reached, can still be pushed higher and higher and higher. Mm. And as Phelps says, there actually isn't a limit. So that's why Ronaldo today is still, people are famous, oh, he's doing press-ups in the shower and stuff. You know, because you can always do more.
Yeah.
Always do more. And then I think the final thing, next to the belief, the final thing is that character. You have to be able to keep going.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be
resilient, no?
As you said, it's a hill. It's actually a roller coaster. It's not a hill. It's up. You're up there for a bit, and wow, this is great up here. And then you're on you're down, and you've just got to either, as I said, somebody's instilled it in you. You had that born with it, or somebody's guiding you, or combination. But you've got to be able to keep going. And I think I'll never forget this. We were talking about Muhammad Ali earlier, and the boxing, the sporting occasion that literally physically touched me. Physically, I'm like, oh, I'm getting cramps, you know. Yeah. Was when he fought Frazier the third time, and they nearly killed each other. And you imagine it was 15 rounds in those days, and literally for every one of them rounds, oh, I've got to breathe. And in that fight, what a lot of people don't know is Joe Frazier quits, but a lot of people don't know that Ali was literally seconds from throwing in the towel. And, you know, afterwards, when they talked to him about it, he said, but I don't think I would have.
Yeah. It's that old, there's a really famous picture, right, that where the bloke's digging for diamonds, and one says, I'm done for the day, I'm never going to reach it, and the other one keeps digging, and he doesn't realise he's that close to being where he wants to get to. Tom, I want to ask you one question, along the same lines but in more detail. You have successfully produced, you know, although he's had other coaches in his career and stuff, you had a big part to play in producing a Premier League footballer, a national team, a World Cup player. Is there a difference even between those that make it to the Premier League level, the professional level, and those that make it to the Premier League, to the World Cup? Is there even a difference between that in terms of levels of discipline, levels of character, everything that we've just mentioned?
Yeah, there is absolutely. So for me, if you were able to somehow have every level of football, to me, what differentiates all of the levels is not the ability, okay? Because Jordan Henderson isn't a natural talent, but he lifted every club trophy. Mm. So there is a level. When you look at a player playing in the Championship, and you go, he's a good player, him. Mm. But he never ends up being a top Premier League player or a World Cup player. to me, it's about that mentality. It's about that wanting more every day. And it's funny, you know, because I look in other sports, like I'm a big sports fan. I watch darts, snooker, everything. And you look at some guys and you're like, you can tell there's something wrong in this guy's outlook, why he's not the finished article, why he's not the top draw. So that I 100% believe the levels are all down to that formula, and how much it's applied on a daily basis. And once you get the thing you want, are you satisfied with that? Do you want more? Because if you remember when I asked the lads, how many of you all put your hand up when I said, do you want to be a pro footballer? But how many of you thought, I want to be an all-time great?
Let me throw this one at you then. What's harder, to get a professional opportunity or to stay at the professional level once you're there?
I think, I do believe cream rises to the top. I do believe, I mean, your environment proves it. You know, that lad you introduced me to today, you can see that lad's he's put the work in. You know, I don't believe it's harder to get in than it is to not only stay there, but to rise to the very top. To me, many have signed first-year pros, haven't they?
Yeah.
In academies, and they're a pro now. I remember I went to Wigan once to do a motivational speech to their under-21s, and I started the thing by saying, how many in this room are happy?
Right.
And all the hands went up. I went, really? I said, if I was you, I wouldn't be happy. I said, they can still release you.
Yeah.
They can let you go. And the eyes got serious and everything. So yeah, for me, it's about, and you look at Anthony, and I can remember Anthony's first game for Bolton against 𝗘𝗲𝗵𝗶, and 𝗘𝗲𝗵𝗶 destroys him in the game. And I get so angry because the one thing like about me is, if you go on a football pitch, and this comes from my upbringing again, this comes from where I'm from, you go on that pitch there, you should never be afraid of anything. And I can honestly tell you, I can look you or anyone in the eye, I was never afraid of any other team, any other player, nothing. I let myself down with my commitment. I wasn't afraid of nobody. Could be 10 foot tall, I think I can beat you. And he was intimidated that day. Now, this is a true story. So I get up. Joe Royal's behind us because he's doing the under-21s, placing them out on loan. And he loves Anthony, Joe Royal. He's my favourite person in football. And Joe, I'm walking past Joe and I go, you better talk to him. And I walk out, right? And then Joe's like, but your wife's there.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know had happened was that after the game, when they're all walking, an ex-Everton player who was a coach at Bolton at the time, 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗶 pulls Jedi aside. So everybody's walking in and he pulls him aside round there. And he says to him, you are an Evertonian. And Evertonians never fear anybody on a football pitch. If I ever see that again, I'm going to make it my mission to stop you being a pro footballer. Right? And Gavin rang me later and told me that.
Yeah.
And I went, good on you.
Yeah.
Right? The next time he played 𝗘𝗲𝗵𝗶, he had him in his pocket.
Well, they're teammates now as well, no?
And now they're teammates. Isn't that a small world?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tone, to finish off then, I want to ask you, see if there's one last little pearl of wisdom left. Is there a quote, or is there any particular sort of phrase or wording that you live by, or that defines the way that you live, or the way that you would advise young people to live their lives? And if so, what is that?
Yeah, it's one of mine. I genuinely walk around this world and life, and particularly all of the coaching I've done, and I've mentored coaches as well, not just coaches, not just players, but I have a very simple thing that, like, every day is my mantra, and whenever I'm down and whenever I need to keep myself going, and I just say, believe in your God, believe in yourself, believe in your dream, work harder every day, and stay positive all the times. And it's a mantra, and I say that, and I must text that to someone every week.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Tone, we've had many conversations and stuff like that, but when this opportunity come up, then I couldn't turn it down to dive in a bit deeper, if I can get my words out. But I can just tell you, you've had a massively positive effect on my life since you come into it. And yeah, I hope so. But honestly,
you don't want to hear the Sheffield United story?
We'll save that one for the next episode, I think.
Next episode. Yeah. It's a cracker.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ton. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and thank you to Jimmy over there for
staying with us.
Yeah, he must have been a nice nap over there.
You're a legend, sir. Thank you.
But he waited for us, didn't he? He waited all that time for us. So thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, cheers.
From all gents.
Ton, you're a legend.